In 2009, one man turned a quiet life into a nightmare. His name, Li Hao. Starting that year, he lured 6 nighttime walkers into a chilling setup, holding them in an underground cellar he'd quietly carved out. For 2 years, he put them through harsh torment, mistreating them in cruel ways and pushing them into private online sessions to pad his earnings. But the most shocking part, over time, these women, despite facing endless hardship, reportedly grew strangely attached to Li Hao. They vied for his favor, sometimes clashing fiercely with each other. 2 women didn't survive these struggles, and their remains were hidden beneath the cellar floor. For months, the survivors carried on their tough existence just steps away from the traces of their former companions. Who was Li Hao? At 34 years old, Li Hao seemed like an ordinary man. He was a married father to an infant child, a former firefighter who later worked a stable job at the Quality Supervision Bureau. Though not a civil servant, he held a permanent position with a modest salary of about $300 a month, a sum that barely covered the basics for his family. To his co-workers, Li Hao was quiet and unassuming. His only notable hobby was an interest in horror movies and mystery novels, nothing out of the ordinary. Yet beneath this seemingly normal exterior was a man capable of terrible actions. How did an average man orchestrate such a horrible act? What drove these women to remain loyal to their captor, even in the face of such terrible conditions? Alright, let's rewind to September 2011. One night, in the middle of the night, police hotline got a frantic call from a woman. She said she'd been locked in a secret room for over 2 months, and there were 5 other women down there with her. 2 had lost their lives. She begged the cops to save them as soon as possible. Lives were on the line, so no time to waste. The local police moved quickly and soon located the hidden place she described. What they found was the basement of an ordinary apartment building. At first glance, the 100 square foot space seemed unremarkable. Just a bed, a computer, 2 heavy chairs, and some unpleasant smells from piled up trash. There was no sign of the trapped women. The officers, confused, started looking around. Then, hidden beneath a pile of debris near the computer, they discovered a sliding glass door. Behind it was a dark vertical shaft, just 20 inches wide, with a ladder bolted to its walls. The officers couldn't see the bottom, and their calls received no response. With no other choice, one officer climbed down the 11-foot shaft, but the nightmare didn't end there. At the bottom, he navigated a tight 15-foot tunnel, encountering multiple locked doors blocking the way to the women. Just as the officers were about to open the final iron-barred gate, a woman's voice called out from the darkness, sweet and pleading, "Boss, you are finally here." A strong odor hit them, making the air heavy. When they finally broke through, they found 3 women inside. Shockingly, the women initially smiled at their rescuers as if expecting the men holding them, before breaking into tears of relief and fear moments later. The scene was surreal, as if the police were intruders rather than saviors. The cellar itself was a cramped 43 square feet space divided into 2 levels. The upper level held a shared bed and clothes. The lower level served as a makeshift kitchen, complete with a propane stove, pots, and basic supplies like noodles and chili sauce. For months, the women had lived in this suffocating environment, cooking, sleeping, and surviving on whatever their captor provided. At first, Li Hao delivered food every 2 days, but as time passed, he grew careless, sometimes leaving them without food for days. The cellar was buried 20 feet underground, sealed behind 6 soundproof doors. Even if the women screamed at the top of their lungs, no one above would hear them. Their only connection to the outside world was 2 thin plastic tubes snaking through the tunnels, somehow providing just enough air to keep them alive. But the most disturbing detail, beneath the floor lay the remains of 2 women who didn't survive the conflicts among them. The heavy smell filled the space, creating an unbearable atmosphere. Alright, let's break down what happened to the 2 women. The first victim, Zhang Xuanxuan, was also the first person Li Hao trapped. Here's the thing, Li Hao bought that basement under his wife's name, but they never actually lived there. His wife had absolutely no idea what he was doing the entire time. After getting the basement, Li Hao started digging a secret cellar at night, working non-stop until morning. Eventually, his wife got curious and asked why he was never around. So he lied and said, "I'm working night shift as a security guard to earn extra money for us. That's why I'm gone at least half the month." And she completely believed him, not a single doubt. Li Hao began digging in August 2009. Just 2 months later, he lured Zhang Xuanxuan into the basement and began mistreating her. Back then, the cellar was only a third done, but he forced Zhang to help him dig. Over time, he tricked 5 more women into joining her, 6 in total. This cellar was built with the effort of Li Hao and those 6 women. Nearly a year into her ordeal, Zhang Xuanxuan reached her limit. One day, he tried sneaking up behind Li Hao to attack him. It failed. That set him off big time. Furious, he convinced another woman to end her life. They hid Zhang's remains in a corner of the cellar. All the women Li Hao lured were from certain professions, people he met at bars, salons, or parlors tied to informal trades. The youngest was 16, the oldest just 24. Once trapped, they faced harsh treatment and were forced to take part in online performances to earn him money. But here's the strange part. The longer they were held, the more they relied on Li Hao. It's this weird psychological twist. They began calling him boss affectionately. They'd get jealous, fighting each other to be his favorite. Li Hao enjoyed it, turning the cellar into his twisted setup. The second woman who didn't survive, she often argued with another woman, jealous over Li Hao's attention. One day it went too far, and she lost her life in a fight. But here's the thing, Li Hao was totally fine with it. Why? She'd developed health issues and wasn't useful to him anymore. Behind the scenes, he'd been encouraging conflict between them, which turned deadly. Her remains ended up in a corner of the cellar too. After that, only 4 women remained. Li Hao later confessed his motive was simple, money. He'd discovered online performances could be profitable and came up with this dark plan. Police found a laptop in the cellar, but Li Hao said it wasn't for streaming. Down there, 20 feet on the ground, there's no Wi-Fi, no cables. That laptop was just for the women to watch DVDs or listen to music, keep them entertained. The real streaming happened on the computer upstairs in the basement. But to stop the women from crying for help during those sessions, Li Hao watched them like a hawk every single time. So this Li Hao guy is pretty good at digging tunnels, but when it comes to business, he's really not great. He heard that women could earn cash by performing online, charging 50 for half an hour and charging 100 for an hour. But the money he made wasn't even enough to cover the women's basic living expenses, and he even ended up losing money. How's that supposed to work? He had lied to his wife, saying he was working a side job to earn extra cash. But when he came home empty-handed with no money to show for it, he had no way to explain himself. So Li Hao decided to send the remaining 4 women out to work in certain trades, thinking it'd bring in money faster. Here's where it gets wild. Li Hao's confidence was off the charts. He actually took these women out of the cellar, back into the real world. Wasn't he worried they'd bolt? Even if they couldn't escape, they could easily hint to someone to call the police. But get this, he took them out multiple times, and the 3 who'd been locked up the longest, not one of them tried to escape. Crazy, right? In the end, it was a newest girl, only locked up for 2 months, not fully brainwashed yet, who secretly reported him during one of those outings. That's what broke open this shocking captivity case and stunned the nation. The police got the call in September 2011. Within 48 hours, they tracked down Li Hao, who'd already escaped town, and hauled him in. Later, the Supreme People's Court signed off on his fate. Li Hao was convicted of serious crimes, multiple charges, the big ones. He faced severe punishment and was dealt with by the law in January 2014. As for the 4 survivors, some got 3-year prison sentences for assisting Li Hao in the incidents.